So I want to say something that may sting you just a little, but it will save your nonprofit years of frustration. Your nonprofit might look risky, even if it's actually well run, ethically, and doing great impact. And here is what most leaders do not want to hear. They don't want to hear when funders don't experience your organization the way you experience it. Their assumption is the way they are experiencing the organization in their space. They assume that funders are also experiencing that same organization that way. But this is not the truth, because the funders, they don't see your sacrifice, they don't see your late nights, and they definitely don't see how hard your team is working to stretch every dollar. What they see are the signals. And today I want to show you why good nonprofits get flagged as risky, how that risk is manufactured by perception, and what seasoned finance leaders quietly fix without chasing more money. And stay with me, because near the end of this video, I will share the single credibility shift I have seen unlocking funding faster than any glossy proposal could ever. So by the end of this video, I hope that you will have seen where the problem sits, and you will also have, I would also have shared with you the 5 invisible signals that make funders nervous, and how to reposition your nonprofit as a boringly credible organization, which actually funders love. So let's get into it. So when people hear risky nonprofit, they immediately think fraud, corruption, and mismanagement. But let me tell you, after almost 2 decades in nonprofit financial leadership, sitting in donor briefings and audit committees and executive rooms, most funders are not worried about fraud. Maybe, yeah, they are worried, but they are more worried about predictability. Funders think like investors, even if they don't call themselves that. They're asking, will this organization survive leadership changes? Can they absorb shocks? Will my money cause unintended chaos? So when a funder says, we are concerned about financial risk, what they actually mean is, I don't trust your system to hold my money without drama. That's a very different problem. So let's dive in and see why nonprofits, good nonprofits, look risky. Here is the paradox. Some of the most mission-driven nonprofits accidentally send the worst financial signals. So let me give you a few examples I've seen over and over again in my work and engagement with many nonprofits. So first false signal that you could send is that we do everything lean. It sounds like a good thing, but what funders hear is, we are fragile. Lean without your buffer means we have no margin for error, we have an absorption capacity, and we have no shock resistance. In finance terms, that's not efficiency. That's what we called exposure. Signal number two that you could easily wrongly send to a potential funder is that your perfect budget that never really match the reality. So if your budget is always on paper perfect, but constantly adjusted mid-year, funders will assume that you are budgeting for approval and not for execution. And that there, it's not a skills issue, that's a credibility issue. Signal number 3, funder-centered financial knowledge. Let me come slow on signal number 3. Founder-centered financial knowledge. And especially in organizations that are still actively founder-led. If only one person understands the finances founders seek, they just actually see succession risk. So I have watched grant stall, not because of the number, but because the organization felt like a single point of failure. Everything is concentrated in one single point, and definitely that is a point of weakness. So the fourth signal that you could send to a funder without knowing is that you do not have clear cost logic. So how does clear cost logic manifest? So when program teams can't explain what truly drives cost, what scales and what doesn't, what breaks if funding is delayed, then funders will interpret passion without clarity as financial immaturity. And then the fifth signal that I also said is we've always done it this way. In finance, again, this sentence is a version of winter is coming and we refuse to buy coats. Yes, it's like the Game of Thrones reference. That is the intention there. So, but here is where non-profits get stuck. So leadership will say, but we've passed audits. We've never misused funds and we've been operating for years. Funders say nothing, but they quietly downgrade you because credibility is not compliance. Passing an audit means you didn't break the rules. Perfect, good. But credibility means you inspire confidence before money moves. Think of it like being in a relationship, for example. You can be a perfect good person, but if your communication is chaotic, your plans are vague, and your finances are always in transition, then you don't look ready for commitment. And right there, you may be missing your target in that relationship. So let me be very clear, because this is where experience matters. At senior non-profit finance leadership level, technical competence is assumed. What differentiates credible organizations is not the accounting skill that the head of finance is bringing. It's the financial judgment. So judgment looks like building slack before it's needed, saying no to funding that distorts operations, always a very difficult one, designing budgets that tell the truth and not just the story. So strong finance leaders don't just protect the money, they protect the organization's reputation. And reputation is the currency funders trade in. Now let's go down to the solutions. Not the perfect picture solutions, because credibility is built through boring consistency, not big announcements. So fix number 1. In your nonprofit, normalize surplus. Stop apologizing for surplus. A nonprofit without a surplus is not in a good place. It's vulnerable. Fix number 2, make financial logic visible. Your board, program, and donors should all understand what costs grows with scale, what costs are fixed, what risks you are actively managing, because visibility reduces fear. Fix number 3, separate passion from planning. Emotions drive mission, good enough, but structure drives funding. Funders want to see your heart doesn't override your system. So know how to balance the two. Fix number 4, design for absorption and not for survival. So usually, regularly, ask yourself this question. If we received 30% more funding tomorrow, What would break? If you don't know the answer, a funder definitely doesn't trust you with it. And so, remember earlier, I had promised that I would share one shift that unlocks funding faster than proposals. So stop presenting your nonprofit as heroic. Start presenting it as dependable. Funders are not looking for saviors. They are looking for stewards. Your keyword is stewards. The nonprofits that get funded consistently are not the loudest. They are the calmest in uncertainty. They don't say we'll figure it out. No, they say, here is how we already planned for that. And for me, that is financial credibility. So if this video made you slightly uncomfortable, perfect. That's usually where growth starts. If you are serious about making your nonprofit funder ready, not just funded, I crafted the organizational financial credibility method specifically for leaders who are tired of guessing what funders want. And in my upcoming videos, I will break down why donors fear overhead more than inefficiency, how to talk about risk without scaring funders, and how finance can become your strongest leadership signal. So if this resonated, like, subscribe, and share it with a leader who still thinks doing good automatically looks credible, because impact opens doors, but financial credibility keeps the doors open. Thank you for watching.